In the quiet Western Cape town of Klawer, a horrific tragedy unfolded over something most of us would dismiss as inconsequential: a stolen mango. On February the 2nd, 2022, 13-year-old Jerobejin van Wyk was pursued, abducted, and brutally murdered. The man behind this unspeakable act? A 58-year-old train driver named Daniel Smit. This is the story of how one moment of impulsive violence shattered a family and a community. Welcome to Voice Behind the Case, where we dig deep into South African true crime stories, uncovering the people behind the headlines, examining motivations, the victims left behind, and the path to justice. Disclaimer: this video discusses real events involving violence and may be disturbing to some viewers. The goal of this video is to inform and raise awareness, not to sensationalize tragedy or disrespect those affected. This case starts simply. A boy, Jerobejin van Wyk, 13, from Klawer, a small rural town, went to pick mangoes with a friend. What could go wrong? In this case, everything. Accused of stealing fruit from Daniel Smit's property, the boys were chased, and what followed was chilling. Jerobejin was knocked down by Smit's bikie, taken to Smit's home, and his life ended in cold blood. Who was Jerobejin? By all accounts, Jerobejin was your average kid. Friendly, energetic, perhaps mischievous, but that's normal for a 13-year-old. His mother, van Wyk, pardon me if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, described him in court as respectful, loving, and full of life. He loved soccer and obeyed his parents' wishes. For his family and classmates, he was just growing up, until a day in February changed everything. And then there was Daniel Smit, a 58-year-old train driver. Neighbors said he was solitary, often withdrawn, sometimes short-tempered. In court, he claimed involvement in occult practices, including a Chinese occult that influenced his behavior during the incident. But Judge Haley Slingers was clear. Even if he believed in the occult, it didn't lessen his responsibility. Here's how it unfolded. February the 2nd, 2022, Jerobejin and his friend pick mangoes from Smith's yard. Smith chases them in his bikie, hits Jerobejin, and then abducts him. At his home, Smith offers food, then kills the boy by breaking his neck. In a gruesome cover-up, he dismembers the body, burns the parts, and discards others into a septic system, including down sewage pipes. 2 days later, investigators find human remains in sewage pipes on Smith's property. His arrest follows, and evidence mounts quickly. Smith was apprehended and charged with premeditated murder, kidnapping, attempting to murder, violating a corpse, and defeating the ends of justice. In late October 2024, the High Court in Vredendal found him guilty on all counts. He had tried to mitigate by claiming a split-second impulse on occult influence, but the evidence pointed clearly to premeditation. On November the 4th, 2024, during sentencing, Judge Slingers delivered a stinging rebuke of Smith's version of events. The court heard that Jerobejin was eating a sandwich when Smith decided, seemingly out of nowhere, to end the boy's life. The judge said that neither Smith nor his defense could explain what came over him. Justice was swift. Daniel Smit received a life sentence for premeditated murder. He also got 15 years for attempted murder, 10 years for kidnapping, 5 years for violating a corpse, and 3 years for defeating the ends of justice. All sentences will run concurrently, meaning the life sentence dominates. And crucially, parole is off the table until he has served 2/3 of the term. Judge Slingers rejected occult influence as a mitigating factor and declared that Smith's actions were deliberate and cruel, blunted, as she said, by no visible provocation. During sentencing, Jerobejin's mother, van Wyk, could not read her own words, overcome with grief. Instead, her family spokesperson, Matilda Baines, read her letter aloud. She described how her heart would never heal. Her daughter dropped out of school and grew reckless, and her mother's health deteriorated until she passed away herself. Jerobejin's absence turned the family's life upside down. The judge acknowledged this profound sorrow, saying she could imagine the pain of watching children vanish. This family's trajectory has been forever changed, the court noted. This wasn't just a personal tragedy, it rippled across Klawer. The court heard that children disappear unrelated to this act, and the community still hunts for answers about two cold cases dating back to 2019. One girl, Geneva Diergau, vanished in January 2019, another, Janine Bottom, in October that year. After Jerobejin's death, residents urged authorities to investigate these alongside his case. NPA spokesperson Eric Ntabazalila confirmed no pending cases against Smit in those disappearances, but called on the community to urge police to probe further. The wounds remain open. In court, Smit claimed that he had been conditioned by a Chinese occult and that something came over him. Psychologists were brought in, some describing childhood spiritual confusion and withdrawal, but the court found no evidence that the occult played a role. Judge Slingers ruled it wasn't a mitigating factor. The murder, she reaffirmed, was deliberate and justice demanded a life sentence. This story marks more than a news headline. It's about a community haunted by one criminal act and the specter of unanswered disappearances. Our role here is not to sensationalize, but to honor Jerobejin's memory, reflect on justice served, and acknowledge that in places like Klawer, trust and safety can be fragile. If you found this episode meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share. We do this work so the voices of those lost, like Jerobejin, are never forgotten. And if you're from Klawer or know something about the earlier disappearances, please reach out to authorities. The truth matters.